are talking The Hangman. And this is directed and co-written by Bruce Wemple. I've actually quite enjoyed a lot of Wemple's work up until this point. It's co-written and stars LeJon Woods, who plays Leon, our main character. So Leon is a character whose wife has been killed a time before this movie, and he and his son are going on a camping trip to try and bond over their tragedy, their shared tragedy. And they've been suggested to go to this particular area by someone that Leon knows through work. And when they arrive there, it seems nice enough. A few kind of redneck types in the area that are a little unwelcoming, but other than that, it seems to be okay. But all of a sudden, Leon's son goes missing. Where has he gone? And there also seems to be this demonic entity that's hanging around the woods called the Hangman. And as the film goes on, we learn the backstory of this creature and how he factors into what's going on. Now, what will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what I think works with The Hangman. So as I mentioned, I have quite liked Wemple's work for the most part up until this kind of point. And he tends to make a lot of creature features, and the creatures always look pretty good. And I think this is true of this one. The Hangman creature kind of looks like a Frankenstein-esque kind of style monster. It's not nothing to do with Frankenstein, it just kind of looks like that. But the makeup job is pretty good. Some kind of quite fun practical makeup involved in this kind of creature. And they've given him, you know, a somewhat complex kind of backstory. And he has the ability to control ropes, which is unique, I suppose. This kind of plays into his hangman motif, I guess, because he tends to hang his victims, but he does this through telepathically controlling rope. It's a little weird, but unique, I guess. And I have to say as well, I quite liked our character of Leon, and I quite enjoyed the kind of somewhat disbelieving character who's a little sarcastic with what's going on and the people he's kind of interacting with, and his just reactions to what's going on. I actually found quite fun. It follows the similar path of, you know, someone who's out of his element, not believing what is going on, and there's mounting evidence and he's still unbelieving, and then at a point he starts to become the believer. It's a sort of journey that we've seen many times on these sort of films, but I just kind of quite like the character of Leon and the way he reacts to things. It's just quite fun. It's a little different. I find his sort of sarcastic sort of attitude towards stuff and how he's somewhat nonchalant about it. I just found it quite endearing and quite a likeable character. And to go on with that, I liked his relationship with his son. I found that they obviously have a few problems, but it gets across that they're still quite a kind of a close family, and they have a genuinely good relationship outside of this kind of shared tragedy, which has changed obviously both of them. And I thought that was all done by the actors and obviously the writing and stuff. So that sort of side of it was fairly kind of strong. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is both a positive and a detriment, and I'll come on to why it's detriment in just a minute. But the movie is not as a simple a story as you may think. It might sound like, when I've described this movie, there's just simply a killer monster on the loose going around killing people. And that is partially true, but there's actually a lot more going on in this movie. So the plot maybe is a little bit more complex than you are thinking. This involves a cult, it involves kind of racism, various other characters who will kind of come in and out, some of which you're not entirely sure if they are going to be friendly or not. Some are, some aren't. And there's a lot of you know, the gates to hell that this movie introduces quite a lot. So on the one hand, yes, this movie does have a lot kind of going on for what otherwise would appear to be a relatively sort of simple slasher style monster in the woods kind of movie. So there is that. So the flip side of it, I have to say though, is this movie is a little confused in its storytelling, I would say. Certainly it's convoluted. I really don't think the movie gets across what it's kind of trying to do. It has this very convoluted story about the circumstances of this kind of creature, involving kind of like a kind of deal with the devil, a sort of like eternal youth, this kind of cult who seems to be in league with it, but sometimes they're not, and there's characters that are fighting it. You know, the motivation, who's involved, who's not, who knows what, who doesn't. There is so much that this movie, I feel, just doesn't get quite right. The concept, like I said, is an interesting one in a way. And it's good to have a movie maybe that isn't just a simple slasher in the woods, but what you do get is a kind of muddle. And the movie spends a lot of time sort of dealing with this kind of who's involved, and the kind of like, you know, our character of LeJon running away from people, having kind of different interactions with people, and you don't know how much they're involved, or are they just kind of like, because this character is a black person in this kind of redneck area, I guess, is it driven by that, is it driven by other things? The movie is just has too many plates on trying to spin it at once, to be honest. And you feel it's somewhat directionless in regards to the story. So that's a shame, because obviously I think it had the concept perhaps of being a little more than just a kind of a slasher in the woods, but I think it fumbled the ball a little bit here. The other knock-on effect of this is the actual Hangman itself, I really didn't feel like was the main issue in this movie. The main issue that this character of LeJon is facing is this kind of conspiracy of people, and the Hangman creature is like a side character in his own movie, and he really doesn't kind of show up very much. So, you know, the Hangman creature doesn't feel as a threatening presence, because half the time it seems to be killing bad guys, so it's kind of like, well, just let them deal with themselves, you know. And then we don't see it a whole lot, and its modus operandi, as I say, is telepathically controlling ropes, and it's like specifically ropes. It's just an odd choice to have for a kind of like a supernatural power. There's a scene, for example, where we have a face-off with the Hangman and another character, and there's various kind of farmyard implements in this barn, and he's kind of wrapping these ropes around them to pull them off to throw at someone, but like, you can't just move these things, you have to throw the ropes around them. It just seems such a specific, weird sort of, you know, is it something to do with the fabric of the rope again? It's just, you know, whatever. So I don't necessarily think it was fully realised. The character of this Hangman just seemed to be, you know, very just superficial. And we do get a backstory of the circumstances of this Hangman, and there is a character involved, without spoiling anything here, who ultimately becomes the Hangman. And I just felt there was so little done with that in regards to making you care about it, because it's really just exposition. I just don't think it was particularly well handled. So I think this movie overall is just a bit of a kind of a convoluted spaghetti plot movie, where I think it has some elements that make it somewhat kind of watchable in certain elements. I actually enjoyed, as I say, the LeJon character, but it just goes in such a tangent all the time, and the movie needed to have another rewrite, if I'm honest. It needed to be more of a concise plot. Maybe elements could be tied up a little better, a little clearer, or just taken out. So it ultimately becomes a movie that's ultimately unsatisfying, and that it needed to have more of the actual Hangman doing stuff in there, and ultimately being more of a scarier film, because it really isn't. So it's a 4 out of 10. It's a little bit of a miss, but not a complete dumpster fire or anything like that. Just a below average movie, in my opinion. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please do leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.